Louise, Spiral Bright Insight. I am here to share an energy update and also to talk about the energies and some insight about the equinox. Now, I'm recording this on the 19th of March. We are in a very profound time in the middle of two eclipses. So we're in the eclipse corridor or the eclipse gateway. And as of today, the sun is at 29 degrees of Pisces, sitting alongside Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces. Now, this is the final degree of the entire zodiac. So there is a very strong sort of energy of endings today, of getting to almost as far as we can go in the current timeline on the current path. Now, I'm going to talk about equinox because there's some really interesting insights and messages that have come through and things that I've spotted in the chart for tomorrow. And obviously, equinox is one of the key transits in the year, and it marks the time in astrology when the sun moves to 0 degrees of Aries. So this is effectively our astrological new year. So today is kind of like New Year's Eve, and there is very much a sense of sort of taking time to check in and really consider, the past 12 months, all that has happened, all that you've achieved, all that you have journeyed through, and the way in which you have grown, before we step across the threshold and into a new astrological year as of tomorrow. Now, I would say with the conjunction of the Sun and Neptune, this is very, very dreamy, very mystical, very fluid, very shifting and mutable water energy. And the sun, when it meets a planet, will always sort of light the planet and the themes up in a very, very bright and very powerful way. So the sun almost infuses Neptune. And of course, because we're working with the final degree of the zodiac, it does feel very karmic. It feels like, we are in times we've never been here before. And with this such strong Pisces energy, and obviously Neptune is in its home sign in Pisces, so that's giving even more power and even more influence to this. It feels as if we are walking between worlds. And I talked about in my last video about how it feels we are in uncharted waters. It feels that we are untethered. There is a lot of sort of, rise and swell of the waves. And it feels that we are just sort of being moved around. There's nothing really to hold on to at this time. And for me, I want to try and explain how it feels for me, because I as I'm sure everybody else is, or I'm aware that I'm in a period of really accelerated spiritual growth. That's not to say that I wasn't spiritually aware and awake before, but I feel that things have really picked up pace, stepped up a gear. I feel almost as if I'm being fast-tracked, or there is some really quite powerful and high level upgrade happening. So I feel as if, there is some sort of fast tracking process going on at the moment, and it is helping me to shift out of old ways of being, old ways of understanding, of needing to understand. And I think the lunar eclipse in Virgo, which was on my ascendant, has played a huge part in that. But we are between worlds at the moment. We are in the void, in the abyss, in the nothingness. And it is from the abyss and the void and the nothingness that we are going to create something entirely new. But for now, I'm noticing the shift so strongly, because even compared to last week, things that I was worried about, or were front of mind for me last week, just feel so distant. And I was thinking about it, trying to think, how am I going to explain it? It feels like I'm in a tunnel, or I'm at one end of the tunnel, and sort of the old life, if that's the way to describe it, is it's at the other end of the tunnel. And I feel I am being stretched to a new way of being, into a new version of myself. And so the old version of me and the old world, and people that are part of that world, are there, and I can see them and I can hear them and I have an awareness of them, but it is slightly distorted, it's slightly blurry. I can't quite hear or connect in sort of the same way as I was able to. And it's very strange sensation. It's a very strange image, but that is how it feels. And it's like, even things that I did a few months ago just feel like they were in another lifetime. So that to me sort of feels symbolic that I know I am being stretched and that I am stepping into a new version of me and who I am and how I navigate the world. And there is a sense of kind of, I don't know, it doesn't feel, yeah, it doesn't feel like I've totally disconnected from it, but it does feel, yeah, like the end of this really long tunnel. And it's like all that sort of commotion, all that chaos, all that, the old life, the old me, what I used to worry about, what I used to sort of get all tangled up in, feels like it is, yeah, it's kind of, it's way over there. And while I'm aware of it, it's not something that I'm being pulled into. And, just things that I used to spend a lot of time doing, even a couple of weeks ago, it just feels that there is such a huge shift that's taken place and that is still ongoing. And I guess I'm sharing that because I think that feels like it is going to be the way for many of us, because there is obviously a lot of chaos going on at the moment. Things are dissolving. There is a huge crumbling, a huge purging, a huge breaking down of old systems, old paradigms, old ways taking place. And that, if you are in that and you're sort of seeing and experiencing it from a 3D level and a 3D perspective, when you don't have this sort of higher awareness, then it is going to feel very chaotic. It's going to feel noisy. There's lots of drama. There's lots of like, oh my God, what is happening now? But for me, it feels like that's all happening, in another dimension, in another part of reality. And although I can see it, and I am aware of it, but it's no longer feels like it's part of my experience and my reality. So I hope that makes sense, because it feels like that is going to be the case for so many of us, as we're stepping into a bigger, I don't know, greater, better, more, I don't know, just into a different sort of state or frame of reality, which feels like that is part of the ascension process as we sort of, yeah, as our consciousness expands and increases, that there is still going to be all that 3D, collapse, chaos timeline happening. And it is still very much, a reality for so many people. And I'm sure, I'm not going to be immune to it. I'm sure there will be parts of it that I get involved in too, as we go through this process. But it does feel as if, we have this choice now to just almost step away and leave it, at arm's length at the other side of that tunnel, while we can focus and get on with what it is that we need to do here and now. So Equinox is tomorrow morning for us in the UK. It's when the sun moves into 0 degrees of Aries. So this is the new start, the new beginning, themes of fertility, birth, renewal, step forward. And it's equinox, so it is the point in the year when we have, between the solstices, when we have equal amounts of day and night, so equal amounts of light and dark. And it is about coming into that middle point, that equilibrium, that point of stillness, before we sort of tip into the days where we're going to have more light and the balance starts to sort of tip towards the light. Obviously, if you're in the southern hemisphere, you are moving in towards autumn and winter. But we have this point of stillness, this pause, this midpoint. And what is coming through, there's lots of different themes and messages that I want to share in this video, but what is coming through is that it is from this point, this pause, this this point of stillness and this 0 point, that we are able to create the new. Because when we're working with the 0 in particular, and this year, more than ever, it feels like a portal into the new. It feels like a doorway. And as we step into 0 degrees of Aries, and of course, be mindful that the sun is moving into Aries tomorrow, but Neptune is going to follow suit on I think it's either the 30th or the 31st of March. So, in just over a week's time, Neptune is going to follow the sun's path, and it feels as if the sun is lighting the way, shining a light, sort of illuminating the journey and the pathway for Neptune to follow as Neptune finally completes the end of this current cycle, 165 years of working around the wheel, and steps into a new version and a new expression of this planet as it starts the journey again from 0 degrees of Aries. So it is from this point of stillness, and which, for many may feel like a time of darkness. The lights may feel as if they have gone out. We've got to the end of the cycle. We are stepping into the void. It could feel like a tomb. It could also feel like the womb. It feels like it's actually a combination of both. And with the 0, I'm reminded of the cycle of life and the fact that with the 0, there is no beginning and there is no end. There is just this continual cycle, this continual movement going round and round and round, and it kind of represents the whole theme of regeneration and the cycle of life, and the fact that we are constantly moving, we are constantly evolving. And this is about renewal. This is about infinity. This is about, energy being endless and also timeless. And again, with this 0 point, with this point of stillness, which is the totality of all, there is no beginning, there is no end. It is nothing and everything all at the same time. As we sort of sit in this midpoint, this pause where there is complete neutrality, complete purity, everything is completely undiluted and totally not influenced by anything else. This new beginning, this fresh new start, it is from this point and this energetic point that we are birthing the new. And it feels like a portal to new earth, if I'm honest. Now, what it looks like as we move through this, and whether the changes are going to be instant or not, I can't tell you. But it is worth bearing in mind that the equinox is like a check-in point for the coming month. So much as the eclipse sort of gives us the energies to work with for the next 6 months, the equinox really is for the next 3 months leading up to summer solstice, which will be in July. So we are in the womb of creation, and what has been coming through really strongly to me over the past week is the image of the cosmic egg. When I say the image, first of all, I heard the word and I'd never heard of the cosmic egg before, so I've had to go and do some research. When I was sort of shown, or when I thought what would the cosmic egg look like, I was just shown an egg on its own. But as I've gone to look at some research and read about it and read what the people have written about the cosmic egg, when it has been sort of depicted by artists, it's been shown as an egg with a serpent wrapped around the outer shell. So I've been sitting with this sort of image and with this word, what does it mean? What is the cosmic egg? And again, the cosmic egg is a symbol, obviously, of new life, of creation. The egg is sort of the womb, effectively, and it is from the egg and from within the shell that new life is formed, is created, is formed, grows, and then hatches out and comes into being into the wider world. And what I'm being shown is that we are the cosmic egg, that each one of us, or humanity, or us as a collective, is effectively represents the cosmic egg. And we have come to a time where we have spent eons of time sort of being capped, sort of held within this shell, this cradle, this space, this place of being, but inside the egg shell. And as with every sort of creature that comes from an egg, and I want to interject at this point and remind us all that the serpent or the snake is hatched from an egg. As the new life is formed and grows and develops, as it's ready to hatch into its next version and its new experience of life, it comes to the point where it's grown as much as it's filled the space. It's basically got as big as it can get within the space that it is being held. And as we outgrow our shell, and it feels like this is a metaphor for where we are at this time, nature basically sort of dictates the time when the birthing process is ready to happen. So we are within our shell, we are nurtured, we are cared for, we grow, we kind of grow as far as we get, we take all the information that we need to create this new life, and then there comes a point when the birthing process is ready to happen. And what I'm shown with the egg as well is that if the egg is cracked from the outside, then it will damage the life that is being formed within the egg. So that is a very destructive way to access what is going on with inside the egg. But if the egg is broken from the inside and we sort of break out of our shell, or the creature or whatever it is that is being created, that is being formed within the egg shell, breaks out, then that represents new life and birth and the beginning of something new and exciting. And of course, with the sun moving into Aries, we are moving into Aries season. So this is all very much about action. It's cardinal fire. There is a new spark of life. Something is being born. We are pioneering. We are leading. We're showing the way. There's a real sort of we just need to get out there and do this. So that there's all the kind of Aries energy wrapped up in this. But it just felt so profound, sort of, coming back to that point of stillness, that equilibrium, that sort of all the nothing and the everything, that void, the point of pure potential that comes with 0 degrees of Aries, the first of the very first, and the image of the cosmic egg. And, it will look still potentially, and then suddenly the shell breaks, the cracks appear, and the new life bursts out of it. And it feels like a metaphor for the process that we are going in. So we have outgrown our shell. We are ready to be born again. We are ready to step across the threshold, to break out of that shell into the new versions of ourselves, and to see from that point on, where the world, where life, where our experiences can take us. But, it is a case of divine timing, and it feels as if nature has always been in charge, and nature always knows when that life form is ready to sort of morph and transition into a new version of the self. So I hope you're kind of following what I'm trying to say, because it's been really, really profound and really sort of nagging at me, but it's been hard also to try and kind of bring it in and kind of process it through my head, because I know I keep getting the message that we cannot understand things with our heads and our minds anymore. Really, we have to feel, but also I feel, as I'm sharing information, I need to make sense of it myself before I can articulate it, if that makes sense. But we are expanding into the new. It feels like it is time to be reborn, to step out of the cosmic egg. And the vision that I'm seeing when I think of the egg, the serpent is no longer wrapped around it, because the serpent, which of course represents the divine feminine, ancient knowledge, ancient wisdom, the understanding that, everything is a cycle, everything is cyclical. We have to constantly sort of transform ourselves, shed our skins to birth the new, and this is the process that we are going through. But we have almost absorbed the snake, the serpent energy. That wisdom has always been within, but it no longer needs to wrap around the outside of the shell, because it has been absorbed. It is within us, and this is the wisdom that is going to come out through us as we are born and as we move into this next version of ourselves, of our human experience. So there's obviously a lot of key connections with the womb, with the void, with that sort of, the darkness, the seed in the darkness, divine creation, the creative force, a reset, a rebirth, spark of life being created. And I was looking at the chart in terms of the astrology and seeing some other very aligned sort of placements with some of the bodies. So I've decided I'm not going to show you the chart, because I have tried to record this video before, and I was doing it on Zoom with the chart, and I don't know, I just find it doesn't always flow. So I hope you can just, listen to what I'm saying and receive the information that you're meant to at this time without actually seeing the chart. But we have quite a few placements that are relevant here. Now, as we are talking about the Aries point, Mars is the ruling planet of Aries. So Mars is really very strong at the time of equinox. And Mars is in Cancer at this time. Mars is at 20 degrees of Cancer and is in a trine to Vesta, which is the goddess of the hearth and the home. So Mars in Cancer is obviously, you've got that divine masculine energy in a very feminine sort of casing, Cancer being the mother, the womb, that emotional energy and that nurture, that soothing energy. So Mars is having to really change how he shows up, how he expresses himself through the Cancer signature. Vesta is the goddess of the hearth, the home. She is supporting Mars to do this by reminding us all that, Vesta is the light that never goes out. She is that inner spark, that inner flame, that inner light that burns brightly and calls us back to ourselves and reminds us that no matter how hard, how challenging things get, we always have that inner light to come back to. Now, just bringing in some galactic astrology, Mars is also in a square to Tau Ceti in the Cetus constellation. And Cetus is an interesting archetype because there are sort of dual symbolism. Cetus was the monster in the story with Andromeda and Perseus, and Perseus was able to slay the monster. But Cetus is also representative of the whale and the connection to the waters, and a very strong link to the womb and the waters of the womb, and that safe space, that nurturing energy, and also the ability to, I guess, through sonar and communication, sort of pick up on the subtle currents and the messages that come through the water. So with this square, we are being reminded that, first of all, square to Tau Ceti, it's reminding us that home is something that we create within ourselves. We're often taught that home is something outside of ourselves, and of course we need the security, we need the safe space, we need to feel that we belong and that we have our sanctuary and our own home. That is a really important part of the human experience. But so many people, particularly in these times of chaos and transition and trauma that's going on, so many people are experiencing displacement. And this is a theme that has happened through many galactic lifetimes. So it is a reminder that despite the challenge and through the challenge, the goal is, and the reminder is, to find the home that exists within each of us and to claim that and to understand and know that we will always have that to go back to. So this is kind of with the square, there is some tension here, but it is also reminding us of that truth. And with Tau Ceti and the whale and the energy, it feels very nurturing, and that is coming through loud and clear. Now, there is also Pluto at 3 degrees of Aquarius is in an ongoing square to Haumea, and Haumea at 2 degrees of Scorpio is in a quincunx to the Sun at 0 degrees of Aries. So Haumea's energy is very strong at this time, and Haumea is the goddess of childbirth and of fertility. She, as a dwarf planet, is in the shape of an egg, and she is very much linked to rebirth, to regeneration, to an understanding of the sacredness and the divinity within nature, reminding us of the cycles of life, which is just continuously coming up through this equinox chart, and helping us cut through old patterns so that we can release the old, so we can let go, we can shed our skins, and we can move into the new versions of ourselves. So with this square to Pluto, which is all about transformation, but also going into the underworld, to working with our shadow, to bringing in the light and integrating shadow and light in order to evolve, there is a real sense of, an understanding that we need to find a way through doing that to be reborn and to regenerate from ourselves. And with the quincunx to the Sun, there's a real sense here that Aries wants to find a way, wants to be newborn, wants to lead, wants to go out into the big wide world, but there has to be consideration for Haumea's archetype and the fact that she is in Scorpio. So this is about going into the shadow, looking at what is hidden, using that to help us regenerate, to help us transform, and to help us be born into new versions of ourselves. So Sedna is also another archetype that really represents transformation, regeneration, morphing into a new version of the self. And Sedna is sextile the sun at this time. She's currently at 0 degrees of Gemini. So, with this sextile to the sun and to the with the trine of Sedna to Pluto, there's a real sort of reminder here. Sedna was the Inuit goddess who was betrayed by her father, by the patriarchal system. She was cast out into the ocean, and as she let go and she sort of, sunk into the depths, she was transformed into a sea creature or a goddess of the sea and started to reign over her new domain in an entirely new version of herself. So through the betrayal, she transformed and almost took on an even more powerful version of the self. And it feels like just so apt for what we have been experiencing and what we are moving into. So Sedna's orbit is said to be in the shape of an egg. So again, we have the image of the egg through Sedna. We have the image of the egg through Hermia. And we've also got Ceres, who is the goddess of the harvest and also very strongly linked to mother energy, to fertility, as well to providing food and sustenance and nurturing, nourishing energy. And she is at 9 degrees of Pisces, and she is trine Atlantis at 9 degrees of Scorpio. So again, it's really interesting. Atlantis in Scorpio is very much, I believe, sort of bringing in a reminder of all that has been kept hidden, that links back to lifetimes in Atlantis, to the wisdom that we held there. Atlantis in Scorpio is going down beneath to explore, to dig up, to expose, and to help us reclaim all that ancient knowledge, all those ancient gifts. But with the trine to Ceres, we are having to almost access the more maternal, the more mother focused, the more divine feminine aspects of those Atlantean lifetimes, because of course Atlantis was very much science, technology, and quite patriarchal as well towards the end, abuse of power. So there's lots of sort of negative and traumatic experiences, but this is about going beyond that and connecting back to all that links to the mother and the goddess energy, and that fertility and that sustenance and that nurturing energy and wisdom that we are being asked to reclaim and to remember and to come back to at this time. And there's a few other things that I want to highlight. So Mercury is in retrograde in Aries, following Venus retrograde in Aries. So again, there's a story there, but I might come on and do another video about Venus and the star point in Aries. I'll see how the week pans out. But Mercury is actually squared to asteroid Sphinx. And again, this feels really interesting because Mercury is on a journey in going within to reclaim lost information, lost understanding within the self, Mercury retrograde in Aries. And he's coming up to square the Sphinx. Now, the Sphinx is obviously part of mythology, very much linked to a rite of passage, the monster that set a riddle to all those who wish to pass through or pass by. And if you're unable to answer the riddle correctly, you were eaten by the Sphinx. So that was, end days for you if you couldn't get the answer right. And so for Mercury to come up against the Sphinx at this time, at the equinox, as we're moving through this huge time of rebirth, it's like it feels as if it's at this point that Mercury, we are going to get the answer right, and we're going to be given rite of passage. We're allowed to move through now. And of course, the answer to the riddle, which was, what has 4 legs or moves on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at lunchtime, and 3 legs in the evening, the answer is, of course, man, humanity. It's the human journey. It's the human cycle. And as, we move from 3 legs into the end process, and then we're reborn again, there's this reminder that we are in this constant continual cycle, this continuum, which reminds me again of the 0 point, and that the portal and the regeneration, the cycle of life, all of that, it all just feels so incredibly linked. So it is the story of our evolution, of our journey, and it feels as if at this time Mercury is going to suddenly unlock some deep insight, and it's ancient wisdom, so it has been locked away. Often the square is something, that we need to force through, but it's very catalytic. It feels as if we are going to be given access to very ancient information that helps us understand mankind's and humanity's evolution and the truth of who we are. It feels that big. So let's see what happens. But also the fact that Mercury is retrograde in Aries, it feels like Mercury is going back at this time, following Venus, to make sure that he has an accurate account of what is happening. And it feels as if whatever Mercury is getting from this retrograde period that it's going to take forward as he moves back into Pisces, then forward into Aries and beyond, passing the 0 point again in a few weeks' time. Mercury wants to make sure that there is some sort of some sort of note. No, what's the word? It feels like Mercury is the scribe, and Mercury is going to kind of keep note and make sure that he knows all the facts and he has got all the information to be able to tell the story. And it feels as if the times we are going through now is going to create the story, or be the basis and the foundation of stories for generations to come and beyond. It feels that big. So Mercury is going to retrieve something, a truth about the self, something that lies within the self, and then it will be something that is carried on through many, many different timelines and lifetimes. So the other thing that is coming, sort of speaking to me, the fact that Neptune and the Sun, so they are together, obviously Neptune at 29, Sun at 0 degrees, are in a square to a star that I have come across recently in Sagittarius at 29 degrees of Sagittarius, and this is Acumen in the Scorpius constellation. So this is really interesting. 29 degrees, of course, being, the final degree of Sagittarius, and creating this square to the Sun, to Neptune in particular. And Acumen is said to represent the tail of the scorpion. It's the gateway to the underworld. And when we're working with Acumen in the chart, there is clarity, there is perception, there is very sharp insight, the ability to see through all the illusion and to really have that acumen, that discernment, that shrewd ability to really work out what is going on. So that feels really interesting, because acumen is cutting through the illusion that Neptune is casting through its sort of final moments in Pisces. Acumen also, because it's the tail of the Scorpio, can represent a time when we may feel that we are being challenged, when we are under attack or under pressure. There can be a sharp sort of sting or pain or something that happens that ow, pay attention. And obviously, often something has to hurt or sort of go wrong before we do sort of pay attention. It's almost like this sting is going to wake us up from our dream state in so many ways. But it also gives us the ability to understand that adversity is an opportunity and a pathway to growth. And we have a choice, particularly with the square. Will we fall into victimhood and sort of play the victim and think, oh my God, it's just awful, everything's collapsing, what the hell is going on, I just can't cope, I give up, which is very sort of Pisces energy, play the victim, surrender? Or will we see the opportunity of growth and evolution in what is going on? So that feels really like, wow, very relevant. The moon is at 6 degrees of Sagittarius in this chart. So the moon is in trine to Mercury and Venus in retrograde. And the moon is opposing a star cluster called the Hades. Now, the Hades is very linked to a star system that has already gone through the ascension process. So we are calling on the wisdom of this Hadean star system to walk us through, to guide us. Obviously, Sagittarius, there is that guru, there is that sort of higher mind, higher consciousness, higher learning, higher understanding that comes through. And with the Hades on opposition, it feels like we have very strong emotional support and wisdom to help us move through this process. It's a journey, it's an adventure, but we do need beings and support to help us and show us, and also remind us that there is strength in vulnerability, which again feels really relevant. So huge creative potential coming through this star, and also lots and lots of light, just much higher frequencies. It's really, really beautiful. And Mercury is conjunct Alpha Reticulum, which is a star that again has a dual sort of symbolism. It can be seen as very much manipulative, keeping us entrapped, to do with experimentation and abduction and all sorts of very nefarious, very dark experiences and history. But also as the net, the reticulum, the net, I am reminded of the spider's web and the creation and the beauty and the artistry that goes into the spider's web, and how the spider weaves this beautiful pattern as a sort of home, as a safe space, somewhere to kind of find the food and the nourishment that she needs to keep her and her home, essentially. But also the fragility of the web and how easily that can be broken. So I'm going to talk more about this star when I do my solar eclipse video, but I am being reminded with the Hades, trine Alpha Reticulum, and also bringing Rogue Cancri in Leo into this grand fire trine, which is the diamond star. So there are some beautiful diamond light codes coming through here to help us with our rite of passage, to help us with our understanding, to enhance and elevate the frequencies in our consciousness, to really help us to build new strands of light and new light codes. And almost a new story, a new picture is forming here, and it is supported by these beautiful galactic diamond frequencies. So that it feels really, really beautiful. And of course, with the grand fire trine as well, it's as if something has been created that is going to really take hold and start to really burn bright and give us life, give us that life force, give us that creativity, that optimism, that hope that comes through the fire energy. The last thing I want to say, and obviously there's loads of things going on in the chart, but I'm just trying to pull out the key ones that fit into sort of what's coming through for me, is the fact that Saturn is now opposing Alkes, which is in the Crater constellation. Now I talked about Alkes in my lunar eclipse video, but just to remind you, this is representative of the chalice or the cup or the Holy Grail. And with Saturn in Pisces in opposition, there is a sense of Saturn pouring this beautiful water, this wisdom, this spiritual sort of maturity and enlightenment that he is collecting as he moves through Pisces, pouring it into the cup, the chalice, which in Virgo is our body. So we are sort of standing at this threshold of this new world, this new earth, this new way of being, this new form. We are holding a cup, and the waters of life are being poured into it. And as they pour into it, the cup fills and they overflow, and everything sort of comes into this beautiful flow, and the waters that carry this wisdom, this ancient wisdom, and the light codes, and that sort of merge with the waters that are within ourselves, all becomes one. And suddenly we have this higher level of understanding. It's like this, almost like spiritual graduation with Saturn in Pisces. And it's like we're sort of awakening to a new understanding that comes through the waters and are contained in this very sacred cup or chalice, which has the key and the understanding and the wisdom to life's great mysteries. Everybody has searched after the Holy Grail, but ultimately is the truth of who we are and the eternal expression of who we are, and the fact that we cannot be extinguished. We do never die. We are in this constant cycle of regeneration and renewal and rebirth. And yes, we change form. Yes, our physical body dies and we move and we're reborn, and but we're in this constant process. And the soul is ultimately the Holy Grail, or actually no, the soul is the waters and the body is the Holy Grail, and we have this beautiful sort of connection. And of course, the crater also represents gifts. The gifts that we are reclaiming that lie deep within us, that are linked to other lifetimes, to our ancestors, coming through our lineage, but we are ready to reclaim those and to use those as we move through. So one thing actually that I should have also mentioned is the fact that Mars, as this ruler of the equinox, is also conjunct Hawaii, which is the marker that I use in astrology for Lemuria. So the fact that Lemuria and Mars are sort of joining forces is also a nod to sort of other lifetimes, other ancient human history and Earth's history, and going back to reclaim that beautiful light and the beautiful frequencies of the fifth dimension that were very much part of our Lemurian history. The connection with nature being particularly important here. So there are some, as you can see, some pretty profound symbolism, but just to it's the cosmic egg that is kind of the most powerful image for me at this time. And the reminder that or the idea that we have felt so squeezed, and there is just no room left in the container that we are currently in the form that we are currently in. And this is the point where the shell cracks and we burst out and we burst into this new world where there's going to be so much more freedom, so much more expansion and opportunity to grow even more. That's what it feels like. So this is the rebirth of us. And as we come into this sort of equinox time and this pause and this stillness, we are reminded that we need to take the time to embrace that stillness, to brace that pause, because it is in that stillness that everything exists, everything and nothing at the same time. It is the totality of all that is. That womb space, that abyss, that void, it is from that pause and the stillness that we can create the new. So, if you have time or the opportunity just to come into the self, just to be, or not even to be, because we're kind of almost beyond that, just to exist. At some point tomorrow, as the sun moves round and we start this new astrological year and this new journey, then I feel that is going to really help with the energy and with the focus point, which is on bringing in the new. And of course, as we move beyond into Aries season, we have the Venus star point, which is taking place on Sunday when the sun and Venus meet at 2 degrees of Aries, which feels beautiful. And then obviously going into next week, we will have the solar eclipse where the sun and the moon meet at 9 degrees exactly of Aries. So such a big focus on this part of the chart, this part of the zodiac. And then days later, Neptune finally moves across that threshold, finishes off the Pisces, and moves into 0 degrees of Aries as well. So a really sort of fresh new start in so many ways, but also acknowledging that with a new start there is always an ending. So again, it is part of this process is also acknowledging and honouring all that we have been through, where we have come from, all that we have been, all that we have done, and all that we have achieved as we sort of mark the end of one year and step into the new one. So I hope you have enjoyed my insights. There's obviously loads more I could say, particularly about a lot of the galactic alignments in the chart, but I'm going to save those and bring them up in my solar eclipse video. But for now, please like the video, please share the video, please help me get my work out to a wider audience, because it feels like this is the time when so many people are starting to ask questions and to want to know more, and if my work can help just a fraction of people on that stage, or that are sharing this journey in any way, then that just that's what I'm here for. So if you want to join my mailing list and you're not already on that, you can sign up for that on my website, spiralbright.co.uk. If you find my work valuable, please show your appreciation via my super thanks button, which is on this channel, or my PayPal address is also in the description box, and all donations such gratefully received. And yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I will be back with more, no doubt. But yeah, it's this one's felt really well. What's coming through at this time feels super special. So I hope yeah that it resonates with you as well. Sending so much love.